and we'll do that. All right. Whee! So let's see if I can. So Marcia was sorry that she couldn't be here today. But oops, no, that's not what I wanted. So my monitors are turned around on my desk, so they're actually backwards.
Oh no.
So my left to right is off. And let's get rid of that. Boom. Come on. There we go. Okay. Is there a way to full screen a TikTok?
I don't think so.
All right. So we're waiting for Dave. I almost called him dude. All right. As soon as he gets here, I'll start the video up.
I was going to say, you're Gen X. We call everybody dude.
Dude.
We can have a whole conversation with just the word dude.
Isn't that nice? Like all the references, you don't have to explain it.
Yeah.
That's
Dude.
just so nice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like the Wonder Bread speckles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I knew exactly what
Yeah.
you're talking about. Like,
Or snowshoe liners or boot liners. Yeah, in the winter.
okay.
Oh, yeah.
I tried explaining that to my daughter that we used to take bread bags, put them on our feet, put them in the boots.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We had moon boots.
And she thought that was crazy. Yeah,
Oh,
moon
well.
boots. Yeah. It's just the way things were back then. It's all right.
Yeah, I was surprised. And when I went back to Edinburgh, it was the year I turned 30. And like just the things I would say that, you know, the kids that were 20 just didn't understand. I'm like, what? I did not say anything that weird, I swear. And then I would quote Monty Python. I'm like, how have you people not seen Monty Python? You're college students. Go watch The Life of Brian.
Or like if you tell them stuff that you used to do when you were younger,
Oh
and
my
they
God.
just look shocked. It's like,
Have-
what are you doing?
Like,
What do you do?
have you ever
Go
have you
home.
seen any of the commentary from like the younger kids on Stranger Things? Like, where are their parents? You know,
Oh.
It's like-
we were feral.
My
like-
parents were lucky if they saw me an hour when I got up, maybe an hour before I went to bed, and then the rest of the time I
well,
was
we had to be home
gone.
for dinner, so you know. But yeah, it was like that's what it was like for us, you know. But didn't you worry about? No, we did not worry about any of that. And no, there were no cell phones. We just ran off and went wherever and came back and ate. So
It was great. You go
Where
to
did
someone's house
Duke
and eat. Yeah.
yeah, and trying to explain that no, they're not taunting you with Will not being out of the closet for so long. It's like, well, first of all, he's only how old?
Yeah.
Second of all, in the
Back then, you
80s
didn't come out of the closet.
Yeah, it's like back in the 80s. No, it's like Google Matthew Shepard. Okay.
Yeah. That still gets me now.
Oh, I know. It's just like, ooh. But
Mhm.
Well, Dave's got like 2 minutes before I'm going to start this video because
I hope he's okay.
we'll sign a search party for him.
I thought he came in with you guys and then went.
Yeah.
Okay, so he just like went around and went to the bathroom or something.
All right, while we're waiting, you guys have any questions? You have any commentaries, anecdotes?
Thoughts on Stranger Things, which is an amazing show.
Okay, so let's get this guy set. There we go. All right, well, because I'm impatient, we're going to start the video.
Okay.
And do. Is that the right one? I can't read that.
Whatever you're trying to read.
There it is. Okay. Just in time. We're about ready to give up on you. So I'm going to show that video with the sewing frame in multiple books. So this is one of the, we talked about advantages of having a sewing frame. This person sewed 4 books. And this is kind of an average to small size sewing frame. So you could have a taller one, and like my large one up there is probably easily twice as tall as that. So you could get, 4 to 12 books on there, depending on how thick they are. And you just keep sewing until you run out of space. And then you lift them up like this. You make sure you leave enough tape on either end, and you snip it off.
Cool.
So, all right.
That looks like it might be a little tight on
They're,
tape between them.
they're snug. That's okay. All right. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that with you since Marcia sent it. All right. Glasses. So what we're going to do is grab a piece of craft paper or other paper or a piece of cloth that you cut off from your thing. And I don't do a lot of like technical measuring. I do a lot of eyeballing. So I'm going to sit this on here and I'm going to say, okay, I need to go from that mark to that mark. But my paper is not square, so that's probably a bad idea. I'm going to square my paper off first. Oh, well. God. I know you guys can't see this, what I'm doing, but all I'm doing is putting a straight edge on my paper so I have something straight to measure from. The cuts that I had made on it were by hand and wavy. Yeah, so now, like I said, what I'm going to do, which side did I cut? I hate rolled paper. It drives me nuts. I can't really tell. All right. So, and I'm going to put this right in between the marks. You don't want to go over them. Boom. I'm going to go to the other side. No, I'm just going to cut it. So essentially, whatever your spine width was, which, an inch and an eighth, that's what you want to make your paper, just under that. So if it was an inch and an eighth, make it an inch. But essentially, you want a piece of paper that goes, you can't, I'm going to turn the upper camera on. I am sorry.
So you're fitting this in between your boards.
Well, in between the boards, but in between
The groove on the boards too.
the groove.
Right, gotcha. So that, yeah, that was it.
And boom. Are we back yet? Boom. All right. And then do the zoomy thing. All right. So it should fit right in between. Here, I'll move these out of the way. Right in between your marks. So it should be exactly the width of your spine or just a hair under it. And then once you get it to width, you want it to the height of your board. So essentially all I'm going to do is, you can measure it if you want to be exact. I just creased it. And now I'm going to make a cut. So you should end up with something that looks like, I have all these boards here.
That's the width of your spine. Gotcha.
There. You should have something that looks a lot like that.
Is it just under?
Yeah, either exactly or under. Don't be over. Don't be over, Sparky. Never mind. South Park reference that I kind of changed.
Anything the movie.
Was it the movie?
No, South Park the movie.
Oh.
I went to see it.
I've never watched a full episode of South Park, and I've never watched a full episode of the those yellow people, Simpsons.
Oh wow.
Now
How have you-
I've seen it. I'm aware of it. I know some lines from it, but I've never like sat and intentionally watched it. The closest I came to that is back in the early 90s. There was a bar at Penn State main campus that would have 10-cent wings when The Simpsons were on. And my friend and I used to go there. He was going to college. I was just going places. I was there for fun. And we were in there on a non-Simpson night, and a commercial for The Simpsons came on, and I ordered 100 wings. And I told him I want 10-cent wings. And he gave it to me. And then after I got done eating, he asked me to leave and never come back. So I got away with it, but the guy wasn't happy. It wasn't a particularly great bar. The only reason we did go there was it was either close or The Simpsons were on and I wanted wings. And they were decent wings. Yeah. All right. So
That's awesome.
once you have your paper cut, I mean, hopefully you didn't get a paper cut, but once you got your paper cut, you want to make sure, and you can do this, that line from your boards, you want to go ahead and continue it across. So when we glue this down, you want the edge of the paper where my finger is to be even with the boards. Now it may come out a little short, but I think I'm okay with that. You're going to use PVA because we want it to dry sooner than later.
We can just eyeball it in there.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you put it between your marks, it should be a pretty good eyeball. It's kind of was the intent of the marks. Get it as centered on there as possible. Use your bone folder to smooth it out. You're going to have a little bit of glue is going to push out. That's okay. Just wipe it off. Generally, when I'm binding, I will wear shirts that I don't care about, and I just wipe on them. Or I have an apron, but I'm just not wearing it right now. But yeah, just push it down. Once you have good stick, you're good. Okay. The next step, we need to glue the boards down. I originally talked about the general rule is you put the glue or the adhesive on the thinner material. In this case, that thinner material is the cloth. If you want to surgically paint your paste in there, now this is, I would use the 50-50 that we made for this part. Putting the cloth, which is paper backed, onto a board, you'll get really good penetration and it'll still stick. Matter of fact, I put my spine down with 50-50. But essentially, you can do it two ways. You can go ahead and surgically paint this in. Not super thick. I think when you put your spine on, you saw that you're going to have some squeeze out. But you want a nice, even. Really, I probably have enough on there. And if you color outside the lines, don't worry about it. It's not going to hurt a thing. So here, I'm going to deliberately, see, I'm just going crazy. with sugar. Honey badger don't care. All right, then I'm going to turn this. I'm going to get this lined up. I'm going to press it down. Once I have it pressed down in place, and be careful, because if you don't hold it and you go like that, you're going to have enough slip that it's just going to go. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to use my bone folder, and I'm going to radial out from the center of the board, and just press that down. Good deal of pressure. Do it 2 or 3 times. If you do too hard, like I just put a burnish line right here, this will burnish the cloth. But once you have it glued down, go ahead and put a weight of some sort on it, and then do the other side. Your alternative, and while it breaks the rule, if you didn't want to be sloppy, you could really just glue out the board. There I go.
Either one is okay.
It's okay. I mean, the one is preferable, but I find myself doing this because it's easier. And then I use a ruler before I press down, because I want to make sure that my boards are square. So I push down, and I'm going to take this, I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to radial out, putting even pressure. Now, normally in the bindery, I have boards. I have just wooden boards. This is an oak plywood. I think it's oak. And basically I use them so I can put weights on it. And the cool thing about the board is I can put multiple weights on this and it'll hold it down. You don't necessarily have these. When I started out, I would just take a bunch of books off the bookshelf and put them on it. But you can put your brick, whatever you have, just to put a little bit of weight on it for a few minutes. Alternatively, if you had a book press, you could put it between boards, put it in the press, tighten it down, leave it in there for 5 minutes and bring it back out. The more pressure you can put on it initially, we kind of talked about this earlier, that initial pressure is what causes it to stick. And so your initial pressure, the more you can have, the better off you are. Couple 5 minutes is really good for what we're doing here. If we were working with leather, that time would be longer, vellum even longer. So when you're done, you should have something that looks a lot like this. And as soon as everybody catches up, we'll do the next step. You're going to want a couple sheets of waste paper. We're going to glue, do some gluing. So if you got a printer paper or whatever handy, newspaper. Does my order? Absolutely. There's an entire thing of them there, and there's a couple wet ones here. If you get a fresh one, go ahead and dampen it. If not, you just we'll squeegee it off a little bit.
Okay.
And then you want it to be damp, but you don't want it to be dripping.
Okay.
Because you'll be adding water to it. There you go.
Thank you.
There's a point where if you're making a more advanced book, or you wanted some thickness and rigidness to your spine, let's say you were going to gold tool the spine. I would cut a piece of board in place of that craft paper that we put down. And then I would dampen it, which I showed you what happens when you dampen it, but you dampen it a little bit. And then you would use like a broomstick handle or a dowel, and you would work it around that dowel. And one way of doing it, once you get it worked around the dowel, I use an ACE, a self-adhesive ACE Band-Aid, and I'll wrap this piece of board around the dowel so it gets that curved shape. And we looked at earlier, this book here has a really thick spine, and it's actually 2 or 3 pieces of board laminated together and shaped around a dowel to get this really nice round effect to it. And of course, the book board comes in all kinds of thicknesses. We're using a 2 mil, which is average. You can buy this board in 1 mil. So if you needed to laminate it and you didn't want super thick. So if I laminate 2 of these together, I'm going to end up with 4 mil. That's pretty thick for a book. So you'd get board that, was 1 mil, you'd laminate it up, you'd be just over 2 mil because of the addition of the glue. And then you're able to put pressure on the spine and do some tooling on it. So there's other materials that you can put as a spine liner. If you were going to do fake raised bands, well, you'd be using leather for one. Never mind. That's a bad example. All right. Is everyone caught up to this point? Okay. Almost. All right. So what I'm going to do here, when you do your turn-ins, you want to do your head and your tail first, and then you do your foredges. So all I'm going to do, and is that contrast? That's not contrast. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to make a mess.
Oh,
You're fine.
okay.
Do what you need to do. I have another brush.
There you go.
I'm like that. All right. So all you're going to do is you're going to glue this out. You want to make sure that you get the glue in along the edge of the board. And then essentially I'm just going to fold this up to get it to crease. And I'm going to bring this around and fold it on top. I'm going to press down into the spine area. And I'm going to use my bone folder to kind of pull it in. And then you want to make sure you go along the edge with the bone folder to kind of make sure that it adheres to the edge of the board, and just put pressure on it. Push it down. Now, when you work it into the spine, it's going to attach to the spine where the paper is, but the closer you get to the board, there's going to be a little gap. I don't know if you can see the little bit of gap right there. That's okay. Don't worry about it, because when you go to close it, that's going to kind of tuck in. You want to make sure you take your bone folder board to board across the spine area and make sure that the cloth isn't edged up a little bit, because there's nothing really here to kind of hold it from coming in or sticking out. So then you're just going to flip it over. I'm going to put it roughly in the same spot. You might notice that I've used a stippling motion here. The stippling, you have a less chance of getting glue underneath the cloth. And it also helps push the glue into any pores and crevices and things like that. So just glue that up. I'm going to stand it up on edge to get a good crease. And then I'm going to pull it in. I'm going to use my bone folder. Oop, I just got glue all over everything. There we go. And you put pressure on this, make sure it's got good stickability. And And then essentially once I'm done, I'm going to put weight on it again for a couple minutes while you guys are catching up. Where'd my board go? Oh, you stole my board.
I did.
Oh my God. And my weights.
Of course, you had it set.
All right, let's see a steal that weight.
I could.
I think it's 20 or 25 pounds. It's not that bad. You so funny. All right. When everyone's caught up, we're going to do the first, the corners, and we're going to turn in one of the four edges.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and this is a situation you could use straight paste, you could use straight PVA, you can use the mix. I think PVA ultimately will be, well, maybe not stronger. I think the paste is stronger. At some point, I'm going to do a demo video and put it on the Patreon site where I'm going to take the methyl cellulose, the wheat starch, the PVA, the wheat paste, and the 50-50 mixes, and kind of do some demonstrations of gluing up paper and cloth and board and showing you how strong it is. We'll do little experiments. And that's something I don't know, maybe I'll do that in March.
I think I have to look.
It's okay, no matter.
I'm weird like that.
Yeah, Marcia likes, she likes all the little stuff too. It drives me nuts. Now, which is weird because I like all the big and heavy tools, but when it comes to eating utensils, I use the smallest fork in the house.
Oh my gosh.
And my wife just like looks at me like, what are you doing? That's like one step up from the baby silverware. All right. So,
And if you have that IKEA silverware, that's like the smallest ever. Their teaspoons are not actual teaspoon size. So
all right. Everybody got their head and tail turned in?
just about.
Just about. All right. One more minute.
I can always see what I've been doing wrong at home. I've been using the board to this.
Oh,
You can,
yeah.
but you need to, if you use the board, you're going to have to compensate with a wider groove
Gotcha.
because you have now you have extra thickness, right?
Oh, when I went to go close it, it was like, ah!
Yeah, that's
It was
definitely
like
not
this.
enough groove. Yep.
And they had to go shave it off, and it was like a mess. It was a mess.
It's okay. That's why you're here. You're learning. It's good.
Yeah.
You're comparing what you've historically done with what I'm showing you, and you're making those mental notes. I'm glad to hear that.
Believe me, I'm doing the same thing. It's like, oh, that would have made that thing so much easier.
Okay, you got weight on yours.
Wait on mine.
Yeah. Oh, don't put it on the paper.
No.
It'll glue to
stick.
the paper. There's a couple right over there. Old timey wimeys. Oh!
I broke it.
Nah, it's got a quick release on it.
Yeah,
And this needs there. Now it'll-
there we go.
Yeah, I don't use that one a lot, especially when Loki's here, because I was walking with it once and it let loose and it almost hit the dog in the head.
Oh,
I almost cried.
yeah, that would have been
Okay,
awful.
so if you take a look here on your corners, what you're going to want to do is, if you have, I don't have thumbnails right now, But essentially what you want to do is this little extra bit of material that goes out beyond the board here and here. What you're going to end up doing is you want to pinch it in. So you just use your nail or a bone folder, and you're basically going to come from the outside in. Well, we need to glue it first. So I'm going to quickly glue everything out. And I got a little excess glue on there. Sorry. All right. So you're going to take your bone folder and your tip, and you're just going to work that around the corner and then out. And I'm going to do this side real quick, and I'll show you what it should look like when you're done. All right. I don't know how well it's going to show up on the camera. So if you have fingernails, a lot of bookbinders just use their fingernails and just push that in and around. That way, when you bring this up, you may have to use your fingers to tuck it if it tries. But essentially, you want it to not jut out. Thank you, Train. And so you should end up with something that looks like this once you have it folded over, where that little extra material is tucked in and you get a nice even line there. It may take some practice, couple tries, and I got excess glue on here, so I got lots of squeeze out. But then you want to go to your corner, push it down. All right, so if your corner isn't square at this point, this is where you want to just a little bit of tapping, and that'll usually square stuff up. If you allow it to dry, it's going to be like that forever. But while everything's wet, this is where you do a little bit of sculpting, get everything lined up, just like that. All right, so I'm going to do the other side. And you're going to start noticing, I don't know if it's going to be evident on the screen, but it's starting to bow my board. So the adhesive on the other side is starting to pull, and that's what we're getting is a little bit of bowing effect. Can you see that? Okay, I don't know if you might be able to see it better in your own board since it's right in front of you. All right, so I'm going to glue this up, glue it up, glue it out, whatever you want to call it. I usually get a little bit on the fabric here, but yeah, I'm going to try it with just my fingers. I'm just going to pinch it in, and that way, there we go. You can see it conforms to the board right there. All right, and then once I get that, I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to use my bone folder, make sure it's on the edge, and then I'm going to pull it in. And then again, pressure is important. Square it up. And boom, you should have a case that looks like this. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put some weight on it. No, you want to put glue on there first?
Yeah.
You want some?
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
There's some of that. Here's some of this. Just dat in the other ting. Yeah, a lot of times I just use my fingers. It's so much easier. And then I get glue all over everything.
That's part of it. That's okay.
Alas, I don't have fingernails right now.
Yeah, I don't
My
either. I've been
friend
playing my
did it
guitar and I keep the fingernails pretty short. I watch people play with nails, some of the ladies out there, and like, I don't know how you do that.
And if they cut them, they probably wouldn't know what to do with it.
Right.
Because you get so used to, how you learn.
I had one friend that deliberately kept her nails on one hand really long because she did finger picking with them.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I can see that.
But it was funny because it was really just the one hand.
All right. Let's clean up some of this glue. Yeah, and a lot of times if you glue on your board, if you wipe it up pretty quick and don't let it dry, it goes away really easy. It's when you let it dry that usually what I have to do is I wet a rag, I lay it on it for about 5 minutes, let it rehydrate, and then I take it off. PVA is a little bit more challenging than the paste or the paste mix as far as that goes. All right. Everybody got a case?
Not quite.
She's almost there. She got one more side. She got one more side.
Yeah. One more side. No big deal.
I like you. You're not afraid of the glue. That's good. You make a honey badger apprentice.
Thanks.
Yeah, okay. I get that glue everywhere.
I don't care. Because then you can feel what you're doing better.
Okay, without moving to the next step, how confident do you feel that your case is going to fit your book? Because we haven't put the book in the case yet, right? No, don't check it. Don't look at it.
I'm fairly confident.
I'm about 50-50.
Let's see it.
All right. I'm going to take mine out. I'm going to take my book. I'm going to sit it in on the spine. I'm going to push it in.
Look at there.
Woo.
And it looks like my squares are a little bit large, and that's okay. But I have not. So what you want to do is you want to put it in your case and you want to push your foredge and push it back into the spine as far as you can get it. So it looks like where it should actually sit. Now, in my case, my foredges, my squares on my foredge are pretty large, but we haven't done this. Once you get it in and optically line up your squares so your corners all meet, what you're going to want to do is take your bone folder and work along that groove and push it down into it. That's going to take up probably 2 millimeters of material, and it's going to pull your foredge back. Now we're going to do this without glue in it, because what this does is it helps shape it, so when you do glue it up, it falls into place very nicely. Now, I don't recommend sawing, because if you go back and forth, you're going to burnish the heck out of this material and you're going to end up with a white stripe down there. So I'm just working along, just putting, lifting it, moving it, and just work along that crease, that groove. And you can do each side a couple times, because each time you do it, it's going to pull a little bit on the other. There. My foredges are still a little bit larger than I expected. They're probably, if this was a client book, I'd probably remake the case. But being a workshop fun book, I'm gonna run with that. All right. All right. Something that I did not put in your kit, and I'm regretting this now. So in the bindery, I have what I call the brass edge boards. And let me grab some. So this is my set of brass edge boards. And just like the name suggests, one edge has a piece of brass on it, and it comes out longer on the one side. And what we do with these is we would take, once we glue the book out, we would take it and we would set that edge on the groove. Well, here, let's do it this way. On the groove. And then the other one goes face down on the groove. And what that would do, here, let's slide that up there. Is when I put it in the press, it would really make an impression on that groove and give you a really solid, well-defined groove. The brass edge boards are good for like 5 millimeter or, right around there as far as the groove. You start getting the 7 and 9. I have issues with the brass boards. It's good with the smaller groove. Now you guys don't have these. And so there are alternative workarounds. And so I'll demonstrate that. Okay. So I showed you the boards that I use for pressing, and it's just well planed plywood, right? So what I would do is I would take one of those boards, and this is a model airplane push rod tube. I think it's 4 millimeter. It might be 5. I don't remember. You can use, and so the reason I chose this is it was inexpensive. I could cut it to size, and it's really hard to crush these. And so I can put it in the press with a medium amount of pressure, and I know it's not going to crush. Alternatively, I've seen people use really thin sewing needles, not sewing needles, knitting needles. I guess they come in small millimeter sizes. I was not aware of that. You could use, if your groove is big enough, a pen. A Bic pen is probably 5 millimeters. It's a little big, but it would work. So essentially you'd have to find something, or you could, a piece of wood, a dowel, I'm sorry, a wooden dowel that's very small, like 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch or so. And then what I did is I just taped it, and this is just using blue masking tape. I taped it to the edge of the board. So instead of having a brass edge, I have this piece of tube taped here. And then I have this other material. So I'll put thicker or thinner paper to make my groove thinner, deeper or shallower. And so what I'd end up doing is I'd take the groove, I would set it on the tube. Yeah, let's put this up to the end. This is kind of hard to see, but it kind of works the same way. And I like the round tube because it gives you a more even, less abrupt groove. In my personal aesthetic, I appreciate that more than the sharp edge that the brass ones give you. The brass ones are nice. They work. They're worth it in certain cases. These boards I made specifically for Animal Farm and my production on that. Now, you also do not have these, and you don't really have the means of making them at this particular moment. And so I really regret not. I was going to put these tubes. I was going to give you each 2 of them, because then you could just put them on there, put some pressure on it, and it would still, for the most part, work the way it should.
That's a little too big.
A pencil is a little too big. I think the smallest thing, if you had like a Bic pen or two, they would come close to that groove. Now, we're going to move forward unless you have pens or something small and round that will work. What do you call a small paintbrush would work. But in the meantime, we're going to go with the manual, making the groove with our bone folder. It'll make it. It's not going to be as good as it could have been, but it will work. And so when you put it in the case, you before we glue this out, you want to pay attention to how far towards the head and how far towards the tail. You want to make sure that your end bands, everything's even. You don't want it, too far towards the top and too far towards the bottom. So I'm going to go through mine one more time and just kind of push it in there. All right. Did everyone's case fit? Are you happy with how it came out?
I made a flat back book.
It's what?
I made a flat back book.
Okay. That works. So your foredge is probably a little larger, or did you measure appropriately for that?
I'm pretty sure I measured inappropriately. I don't have any give.
Okay. And that happens. All right. So I'm pretty happy with how my case is conforming. Like I said, my foredge is probably almost twice what I want it to be. I mean, if you take a look at the distance here and the distance here, I probably could have done a better job measuring, but this will work. I'm not unhappy with it. I'm just not thrilled. So what you're going to do, keep your book and your case in the same orientation, because you just pushed in a shape, and your shape might not be even if you flip this around. So take your book, set it directly in front of you. You should now have a case that looks like this. It's got a little bit of curvature to the spine. All right. I was fibbing. You can leave your book in the case. You don't have to take it out. All right. Make sure, like I said, make sure your head and your tail are evenly spaced, because this is it. This is it. We are going to glue this case to the book, and it's going to be your first book, or whatever book you get the idea. All right. So keep everything pressed in where it belongs. I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to set a weight on it for the moment because I don't want it to move. So we're now going to put some paste or glue underneath the tapes, and then we're going to put it all along underneath the mulling. And you could do this anytime. We could have done this yesterday. If we had the end papers on, you can glue that stuff down. It doesn't matter. And then I'm going to glue out the rest of this end paper, and then I'm going to close the book. So it's really important at this point that you look at your head and your tail. You make sure you're even. You look at your head and your tail at your foredge. Make sure that it's even and square. You want to make sure your book is set where you want it to be now. Because when we close this book, that's it. Now, we are using 50-50, so you have about 20 seconds to undo it. And I'm gonna do this in a moment. You're going to want 2 pieces of waste sheets, because I'll show you in a second. Yeah. I get my just copy paper. It's this cheap copy paper. I buy it in bulk. I think it comes out to $4 a ream from Sam's Club or Costco or wherever the hell I get it. And so I blow through a lot of this. I recycle when I can, but it makes for an inexpensive. If you're going to do a lot of bookbinding and you see people with magazines, grab the magazines. Magazines make great waste sheets. I have, my calendars. When I rip a sheet off a calendar, I throw it in the pile, and each month I've got at least one new waste sheet there. Okay, so what we're going to do, this needs to stay stationary. I'm going to keep pressure on it. I'm going to lift up my end paper, keep pressure on it, and I'm going to put in my waste sheet. And I'm going to put it all the way as far as it'll go without pressure up to your spine. All right. I'm going to you do not need a ton of glue. When you paste this out, you want it thin and even. If you make it really thick, you're going to get squeeze out all along the edge of your book, and it's going to dry there, and it's going to be ugly. And you're going to hang your head in shame. So
Too late for that.
So I'm going to lift up my mulling. I'm going to lift up my my end band or my tapes, and I'm going to put some underneath here. And that's actually probably too much. So I'm going to wipe some off, and then I'm going to push my end bands down into the shoulder with the brush. Tapes. Why do I keep calling them end bands? All right. And then I'm just going to stipple the mulling, and I'm going into the shoulder. You don't want to get glue over the shoulder, or your spine won't break away the way it's supposed to. So if you get glue on it, just wipe it off. But you want to conform the mulling into that shape. Once you have that done, you're going to start roughly in the center. I recommend stippling it, and the faster you move, the better, which it's because your paper is going to start to wrinkle. And so, boom, even glue. I'm going to wipe off my hands. I'm going to take out my waste sheet. I'm going to put my fingers at the foredge to hold it so it doesn't slide. I'm going to bring my spine up, and I'm going to gently rock it into that shoulder. And then I'm going to look over the top, and I'm going to make sure I'm lining my corners up, and I'm going to make pressure adjustments. And I'm going to say that's good. And I'm going to press it down. As you're pressing, keep pressure on the book somewhere, because if you push this and the book skews, it's going to slip inside and you're not going to be happy. So I've done that. I'm now going to come over here, and I'm going to push down into that groove. I'm thinking my groove could have been a little bigger. And you just really want to work that in for a minute. Okay. I've now glued half my book. I'm now going to flip it over. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to repeat what we just did. I'm going to put in a sheet of waste paper. Now, at this point, the book is less likely to shift and move on you. And I make sure I get some paste underneath those. Oh, see, I got some glumps. I didn't. There we go. I didn't strain the paste this morning, and it had some bumps in it. So I just flicked it off. There's another one. I'm going to put down my tapes, and then I'm going to stipple in to that shoulder and make sure that my mulling is conformed. And then starting in the middle, always work from the middle out. If you started and end, you're going to get glue underneath it, and you're not going to be happy. So I'm going to stipple it. Wipe off my fingers, either on the rag, my clothes. I'm going to take out the waste sheet. If you don't lift this up and you pull the waste sheet out and you go at any angle, you're going to wipe glue from the waste sheet onto your end papers. And you're going to roll that back down. I'm going to wipe my hands. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to bring the spine up. You're going to keep pressure here so it doesn't shift. You're going to sit your board into the corner. And then looking directly over your book, you're going to line up your corners. And when you're happy, you're going to put some pressure on it. Then you're going to put pressure into this groove. And I'm going to work back and forth a couple times on my groove. Now, if you had boards, this is where you'd put it in between the boards and press it. Now, what I would recommend, if you have a couple heavy books or whatever, I would put some really heavy books on here. The more weight, the better. In this case, I'm just going to put a little weight on here because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to switch cameras. What can I do for you? What do you need?
I'm just gonna grab some glue.
There you go.
That's all. Thanks for asking.
All right. So if I'd sent you the tubes, we could have very easily have just set the book on the tubes. While you didn't actually have the boards, if you set a decent sized book on it, make sure it didn't move. Then we could have pressed it with a book press as in books. Okay, so in a bindery, what I would do is I would take this book now, I would put it in a big press, and I would put it under several hundred pounds of pressure. And that initial pressure would make sure that those end papers are flat and are stuck to the board. Now, we don't have that option right now. And, well, I mean, I do, but I can show you. So this is my baby press. Okay, a little bit of history. So bookbinders, they were notorious for stealing tools from other industries and making them their own. So I think we kind of discussed this shaped hammer. This was originally for a cobbler. So shoemakers would use this to work and shape their leather and their soles and whatever materials that they were working with. I'm assuming back in the day it was almost all leather. Nowadays they make shoes out of rubber and 3D printed crap. You may have figured out from my tone I have an opinion on that. So this guy, most people see this and like, oh, it's a book press. It's not. Bookbinders stole this. This was a copy press. So you'd put something you want to copy in there, you would nip, you take it out. Eventually, they started making book presses with the intent of bookbinders. And the difference was the angle and cut on the screw. Now, when I clamp this down, it'll clamp, but as soon as I release it, it backs up. I mean, it's minute. I don't even think you'd be able to see it on the camera, but I can physically feel it. So it'll tighten, but then it releases pressure as soon as I do. And to get this to clamp down as hard as my larger book press, which I'll show you in a second, I have to clamp it, let it loosen, clamp it, let it loosen, clamp it. And then eventually I'll get to a point where the pressure holds. But essentially what you do is you'd take your book, you'd put it between two boards, mainly because the boards are clean in theory. And you don't want to transfer any of the texture from the plate to the book. So you just put it in there. And as long as my shoulders, as long as my shoulders are not taller than my boards, I don't know if you saw that. It backed up just ever so minutely. Okay, it's going to hold. All right. So that's now probably under, I don't know, 150 pounds of pressure or so. And when you make a book like this, you want to do this for 2 to 10 minutes. The larger press, I don't know if you guys on the screen will be able to see it, but, oh, you're not following me. Hey, you follow me this time? Come on, you can do it. All right, so this is the wheel to the bigger one. I can't lift this by myself. When I bought it and I was much younger, I lifted it once and got it into my trunk. And that was the last time I lifted it. I've ever since paid people to move my shit around because this thing probably weighs 350 pounds, maybe a little bit more in that neighborhood. This guy here is heavy enough. I don't know its weight, but it's probably over 100. So I put the book in there between boards. So you would clamp it down like this for, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Then you would take it out. And if you had backing irons or brass edges, you would then put this in those particular boards. Like this. And you'd put it back in the press. Okay. And then you'd clamp it down for another 5 or 10 minutes. One of the caveats to the brass edge boards, especially if I'm using the bigger press, if you clamp down too much and you didn't leave enough material in the groove for it to sit into the groove, you could actually tear your cloth or your leather at the groove at this point. This one here really doesn't have the strength to do it. The big one over there would definitely do it. So when you plan out your groove, you need to make sure, okay, I want the width of my groove plus the height of the board, because it's going to push down in there. If you want to have a little extra loose book, you can say the width of the groove, the height of the board, and the height of the shoulder, which is probably a better way of doing it. So you guys are still working those? You want to put it in here?
Sure.
So I'm sorry you guys don't have access to this today. The tools are, it's one of the funs of the in-person workshop is you get to play with the big boy toys. And so I'm going to take mine out. And so what I'm going to show you before I hand this over. So there's my groove. It's not perfect. I'll be the first to admit it. So after about 10 minutes in the press, underweight, what you're going to want to do is find a place on your counter, take your book out, and you're going to want to open it no more than 45 degrees. If for whatever reason, you got a little bit of glue and let's say your end papers are sticking together, just take your bone folder and work it out. Mine didn't have that. So basically take your book, set it at about 45-degree angle open, and you're going to let it sit like this for as long as your patience will allow you. I usually do this kind of stuff and I let it sit overnight. 4 to 6 hours is plenty. If you touch it and the inside feels a little cool to the touch, that means it's still a little damp and drying. So if you can let it go, let's say it's 2:30, 3:30, 4:35, 36. If you can let it go until let's say 6:30, then you can use your book. My recommendation, if you have the patience, let it dry overnight without touching it. You'll be happier. Because the glue will dry and set up in about 20, 30 minutes. It'll cure fully overnight.
So you wouldn't leave it in a press overnight?
No. You want it to dry. Yeah, that initial pressing, 10, maybe 20 minutes. If you're using paste, a little bit longer. If you're using paste, I would leave it in the press for 20, 30 minutes. But then you want to open it up. Now, let's say you were doing a stack and you did want to leave it in the press, like in one of the standing presses, I would use some Rainy, and I would use a cotton blotting cloth. And I have all right. So so this is Rainy, and it is an acrylic, funky fiber cloth. And the closest thing I can compare this to, it's a dryer sheet. I don't necessarily recommend using a dryer sheet, but that's what the texture is. I mean, you can't see or smell it and touch it.
It looks
taste
like
it.
iron and interfacing
Yeah.
for something.
And then you can buy, this is 100% cotton rag blotting cloth. It's watercolor paper. Now watercolor paper is insanely expensive. So if you want cheap watercolor paper, go buy some blotting cloth.
Where do you get that?
I order mine from Talus. But it's 100% cotton rag. I think it's a hot press. It feels like it to me, at least on this side. This side's got a little bit of tooth to it. This side is smoother. But yeah, if you're going to leave your book in the press and close while it's drying, you want a moisture barrier, because your moisture is going to seep through to the first 2, 3, 4 pages. And when you open up your book, they're going to wrinkle. They're going to look horrible. You're not going to be happy with it. So I put the Ramie in to the side that's been glued. And then I put in the blotting cloth between that and the rest of the book. Alternatively, you can use a sheet of acetate. So in place of the 2 of these, I'm still getting that it's snowing. I'm sorry. I looked outside. It's all white. So this is just standard acetate. And essentially you would slide that in and it would act like a moisture barrier, and it's not going to stick to it. So this is another route you could go. I think the biggest caveat to the acetate is if you put enough pressure on it, it will burnish or make whatever it's between shiny and not necessarily evenly. So good moisture barrier, just watch how much pressure you put on it, or test it out on the material that you're putting it between, because you'll end up with these glossy areas that like RN papers are not glossy. And you'd be able to see where this had a lot of pressure, like especially around where it was touching the cloth turn-in. That square would be more pronounced because it would be glossy. And it's not that glossy is bad. It's just, it won't be even, and it'll really draw eyes to areas that you didn't necessarily intend them to. So yeah, this is another route to go. You can do any of these, like when you put it in the press, if you have like some paper is just really sensitive to moisture. This stuff here I know is not, so I wasn't really concerned about it. But if you know it's sensitive, like I've got some marbled papers that I won't buy again because they're so sensitive, but the moisture just transfers right through them and they ripple, and it's a nightmare. So you could just put, even for the 10 minutes, you could use the Ramey and the cotton blotting barrier, and it'll help alleviate that. But when you open up the book and you have it sitting out at, that 45-degree angle, as long as nothing's really touching too much, you're fine. Yeah, do you see that? So I tightened it and I let go of it and it bounces back. Copy press. All right. Well, you've made your book.
Woohoo!
For better or for worse.
Yippee.
Yay!
You did it.
She's still working in her groove. Oh, yours is in here. I'm leaning on yours.
I'm waiting for that.
Yeah. All right. How'd yours turn out?
I'm mostly happy with it. My end papers, my boards were a little short. A
Okay.
little short.
Yeah, mine
I
were.
can see my end papers a little bit when it's closed.
Okay.
It's
So
the nut.
do you want a critique?
Sure.
Okay. Actually, it's not bad. His, I don't know if you can see this. It's got a really nice even groove. Had we sent tubes in that, it would be a little bit more pronounced, but it's a nice, subtle, even. You can see his shoulder. There's a little bit of kick up on the ends, which is common. It takes a while of when you're doing the rounding and shouldering. It takes some practice to get a straight line. So that's common, and it looks really good. Your squares are really good. So they're dang near perfect. They're about 2 millimeters, a little less on the foredge, but your book wasn't centered quite right. So you have a little bit more down here is that the head or the tail? That's the tail, which is okay. All right. Your corners line up. That's pretty. End bands are sitting nicely. Got a good round. She opens and closes nicely. Very nice. I'm going to stop playing with it. You should let it dry. All right. So I'm gonna critique myself. I'm not happy with my shoulders. My shoulders are incredibly uneven. You can see the ripples. And I'm going to chalk that up to, as I spent a lot of time talking and moving around and blah, 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 blah. I know excuses, right? And I think my shoulders could have been a little bit more pronounced than they are on this one. Looks like it's wearing a bonnet or something. I don't know. And this is something that she did. If you look in here, you can see my end paper sticking out from the text block. There's that strip of green. So what she did is before we cased in, she put a ruler between the text block and her end papers and then cut those off. And I didn't take the time to do that. So, I mean, in a professional book, I probably should have trimmed that way also. My squares, I made my squares a little bit taller. They're probably closer to 3 millimeters. The head and tail are even, but this is closer to 4 or 5 centimeters. So I really could have, my groove was off. So I ended up with taller squares. Now, in the grand scheme of things, in the bookbinding world, having your foredge with slightly larger squares is not uncommon, and it's not frowned upon. So while I'm not happy with it, because I like mine to be symmetrical, this could be passable. I not for me, but passable. Let's see yours.
Well, it's not set yet.
Oh, let's hold off on that.
How about you pull mine out?
I'm gonna pull hers out of the press and let her come and put yours in. Okay. And make sure you got it's in the groove. Come on, get into the groove.
That's been running through my head for so long now.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
Can you set it in
So
this
when we
way?
set it in long ways.
Okay.
Nope, it's not gonna fit that way.
This way.
Yeah. And then before you clamp down, let's make sure,
Right.
because yours looks like it fell off a little bit. There we
Mhm.
go. All right, I'm gonna hold this.
Mhm.
And go ahead and bring it down. Ah! No, just kidding. Just kidding.
That was mean.
I am
I'm
mean.
funny.
Okay. I'm gonna-
Yeah, give it that kind of one.
All right, so we're gonna let this one. Ah.
I can tell you that the front square is short, and you can still see my end papers despite the fact that I
You
trimmed
trimmed
them.
it off. How did you do that?
I have no idea.
Fascinating. Okay, so actually looks pretty good all in all. Could have been a little bit more centered. Her groove could have been a little bit wider. And I think that's the same with mine. I probably could have been a little bit wider on mine too. Her squares are pretty even, a little bit more on top because the block wasn't centered. Yeah, I'm really surprised at that.
Yeah.
She literally, I helped her. I watched her trim that down, but she still got a little line of green. Do you guys did you find your end paper grew a little bit, and do you have a little bit of a line there or no?
Yeah, mine grew. I trimmed it.
Okay, I wonder if that's because of moisture. Now, if we were using paste and we pasted down without the PVA, even with the PVA, but especially if you were just using straight paste, you could take an X-Acto knife, a sharp one, and go down that line, trim it, and peel it off, and it would come off at this point. So if you wanted to do that, now there is a chance because the material is wet. If you don't have really good pressure on it, it'll buckle as you're cutting, and you'll end up with this ripple edge that is unpleasant. So there's a risk, but it can be done. Steady hand, patience, pressure, sharp knife. But I mean, her case opens nicely. If the groove was a little bit bigger, this would open a little bit further. If I go like this, it starts pulling, and that we should get to here at least before it pulls. And I don't think that's going to be just hers. I think mine's going to be the same way. So open it up. Oh, okay. So you see how my shoulder was bigger, and so we ended up with this deep groove. So I get to there without pulling. That's okay. So I'm not trying to brag. I thought mine really was going to do that. So if she had a bigger groove, the paper would have tucked better. How'd yours come out that way?
This one's yours.
Oh,
This was the other.
no, this one's mine.
Wasn't this the first one you did?
Oh, that was an early one. Yeah. How far does it go before it? Oh, it pulls right away. But that end paper is a really stiff end paper. Do you feel how heavy that is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's yours? I want to see how yours opens. Yeah, see, it's pulling right away, and it has to do with your groove. Yeah, see, yours nice.
Yeah.
His did it. His opens flat without
Very
pulling. All right, so little tests.
Fancy.
Oh, that's funny.
That one.
A little bit. If you get a little bit of pull, it's not horrible. It really isn't. This is a lot of pull. Eventually, what's going to happen is this is going to rip. It just in time. If she uses this book, it's going to rip here, and that's all there is to it. This side is not as bad. So the size of your groove, like hers right there, I don't know if you can see it. We're looking at, that might be 2 or 3 millimeters. Where mine is probably closer to 4, maybe 5. And really, you want at least 5 on a book this size. 5 is good. A 6x9, somewhere between 5 and 7. And then when you start getting into larger folio books, then you can go 7 to 9. I think beyond 9 would be ridiculous. 9 in itself may be ridiculous. Is this one?
Let's see those guys.
Okay. We showed you ours. You got to show us yours. So let's start off with Hank.
All right, so I have like barely any groove.
Okay.
Yeah, and they don't really line up. I think they were different sizes.
It could be.
And then this I didn't center it so that this there's probably like a millimeter
Yep.
at the top, and then there's like 2 millimeters on the bottom, and then like maybe 3 millimeters on the cover.
Yep.
Yeah, there's I think a little pooling.
Just a little, but that's pretty dang good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that flops up pretty nice.
And that's beautiful. All right. How do you feel about
Yeah.
that?
I feel dang good.
Honestly, I mean, when we do the critique and we're looking at maybe some of the flaws, but you got to look at the whole book and you got to look at what was done right too. And I think every one that we looked at so far, pretty damn good. I'm impressed for a first book, especially. I don't know how easy it has been to follow me on the computer. I've done workshops before, and I used to lead workshops for the Boeing company, but I always had people in the class around me, hands-on, and so this is the first time I've stepped into this arena where I've got multiple people and a small screen, and so in time, if you want to take a moment, shoot me an email, give me a critique. What can I do to make this better? I promise you, I have thick skin. You cannot hurt my feelings. The only way you could affect me is maybe if you kick my dog. And, well, you're not going to be able to do
In which case you'd have to deal with
you'd have to deal with the dog. But yeah, let me know what I can do to make this better experience on your end. I know there's some hardware that I want to get to make the camera switching easier. I actually want to get a third camera, bunch of other stuff. But okay, Heather.
So I'm the one that accidentally made a flat book.
Okay.
So I didn't get the groove in because I think I measured wrong when I was spacing out. But I got it pretty even all the way around.
Yes, you did. That's nice.
And but obviously it's going to be really tight when you open it. Oh, here, sorry. It's going to be really tight when it opens. And I got some ripples.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. When it laid down, it flattened out.
Right. But I think that's also because of the fact I cut it, I measured it incorrectly. I think it would have I think if I actually was able to have the grooves in there, I probably wouldn't have had the pulling of with the end papers.
Okay.
So, but I'm still pretty happy with it.
You should be. You have. It's a book. It's identifiable as a book. You've succeeded. And you know what you did. You've got those notes. And we have an echo. Okay, awesome. Good job. Wendy.
Okay. All right. I love the fact that I finished. That's a victory. Okay, so I think I hit pretty much everything what not to do. And so it's a great example for me to hold on to. But first off, when we were cutting the end papers, I totally cut the sample like totally wrong. So I had to like grab stuff that I had out of the closet and I didn't cut it to size. So we've got a lot of stuff going on there.
Okay.
Need to work on attention to detail on measurements because I've got a few little issues going on like everywhere. And so it is flat, it's not curvy. So we've got a lot of it lifts and stuff when it opens.
Sure.
But I got it done. So
You know, you got it done, and that's like the first step. This is the first book you've ever made?
yes.
Okay. Then you know what? Yeah, exactly. This isn't easy. And like I said,
No.
this type of environment, bookbinding is a very hands-on, tactile thing.
Mhm.
And these guys had the advantage of Marcia yesterday walking around and me walking around helping them. And so I think, they had an unfair advantage that you guys didn't have. But the
I
fact
think
that
I would have made you cry in person if you had watched what I did.
oh
It was
my.
funny. I was like going, how the heck did you do that? And that was kind of like in my brain going, how did you do that?
But
So
I think in person, you might have, the perspective would have changed for you. It would have been a lot easier. But I mean,
yes.
I give it up to all three of you for sticking it out and getting this done with the screens and everything. I took some college courses, and I tell you, virtual learning is rough. And if you get derailed, it's really hard to get back on the rails. So, I mean, at the end of yesterday, I honestly didn't think you were going to finish the book, honestly. And the fact that you went and did the homework, redid what you needed to do, and then you got this far.
I
Give yourself a pat on the back. It's
I'm
wonderful.
what I did. I said, let's see if I can pull this back together again. If not, I don't know. We'll watch the video and do it again.
So what I'm going to do, I will publish next week. I'll put a link out there just for you guys and the guys in the class here. And so you can go back and you can watch the video if you want. In the next 2 weeks, I'm going to redo the project, and it'll just be me doing it, talking, and it'll just be that. There won't be any of the other distractions. And I'll get the whole thing because I know I didn't hit record a couple times. And I think it'll be a little bit easier for you to see what I was doing and get yourself material, try and make 2 or 3 of them. And I guarantee you, by the time you make your 5th one, you're perfect.
It'll click.
Yeah. And all of my books, even the ones that I sell online and that I charge a lot of money for, they're not perfect. I promise you, each one has a different flaw. And I'm not a machine. I'm a craftsman. I'm an artist. I'm a tradesman. So there's variations. Now I'm with this animal farm thing. I'm trying to make 365 of the exact same thing. And I'm taking my time, but I've been making templates. I've been, doing all kinds of things to make sure that it is as precision and machine-like while still being human.
Right.
I forgot. We've got one more.
Oh, I forgot.
All right.
Which one of those was mine?
one with your name in it.
It doesn't have my
Yeah,
name
she
in
did
it.
have her name in it.
Oh, it's the one.
It's the one with the small F in front. I can tell you that because I made a small F in the front, so I would know. That's fine.
That's it.
Mhm.
Okay, there you go.
Go ahead.
Okay. Woohoo! All right.
There's not enough crease.
The groove could be bigger, and that's okay. No, I mean, all in all, it's a good book. So we've got something that we've seen before. The groove is a little small, and that's okay. And I predict that because it's small, we're going to have some lift. Ooh. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so there's a little bit of lift, but we already knew that. And
So if I would have measured it better, then it would be.
if your groove was a little bit bigger, your lift would be a little bit less.
Okay.
We've got, oh, this is something new. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that. I don't think we got enough paste between the paper and the board, which we'll sit down here and we'll fix here in a moment.
Okay.
Beautiful thing about bookbinding is a lot of mess ups are fixable. Just a matter of patience. So it's nothing to get upset about, nothing to be embarrassed about. You got some mild misregistration on the corners, so they don't exactly line up, and that comes with practice. It's a lot of this is dexterity in learning, and you now learn the general process of making a book. So the next time you'll have an idea of what you do, and it'll be easier, and it'll come out. Again, all of them are identifiable as books. You've succeeded, without a doubt. You know, you're a little bit closer to one end than the other.
Mhm.
Yeah, just common. This is everyday
I'll take it.
rookie stuff. And like I pointed out, my book wasn't even perfect. So hang on to that. I'm going to move my press, and we're going to fix that separation.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we got is there was not enough paste to adhere the paper to the board. So we got some gappage here. And I'm going to open it up a little bit more. And I'm going to, we wipe that out. There's a little jar of PVA right here. Do I want to use PVA or paste? I'm going to use paste. Where's the jar of paste? Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's right in front of you. All right. Yeah, I know. I'm mixing. All right. So I choose this brush because it has longer bristles, and I want to get down in there as far as I can. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the book to gap this as much as I can. And then I'm going to take the brush and I'm going to put it on the board, and I'm going to put it on the paper as deep as I can get. I'm predicting I can get at least 2/3 of this adhered down, which will hold it. And I'm going to use the paste because it's going to take a couple seconds to do this. I can get almost all the way down.
There you go. Cool.
And I'm just going to wiggle the bristles so it gets as deep into that fold as possible. And I'm also going to put some on the board. I want to make sure we get good adhesion there. All right. I'm trying my best not to get any on the spine, because if you open up your book and you look, the spine's going to come away from the spine of the cover will come away from the spine of the book. And you need that for the flexibility of it. Oop, got some on. I got a little bit onto the spine, so I'm just going to get a dry brush and basically wipe it off. If you get enough of it away, even if it sticks a little bit, the bond won't be strong enough and you'll break it. It's okay. All right. So here's the next part. I can't just close this because of the way the papers come away. So as I'm closing it, I'm going to help it go into the shoulder and onto the board without crumpling. So I'm going to start by pushing this into the shoulder. And then as I'm closing it, I'm going to be pulling tension on it that way, trying to hold it. And I'm going to use the round of my bone folder to kind of keep that shoulder in. It's going to ripple a little bit. I can see it already. If I put too much pressure on that inside the shoulder where the end paper is folding, because it's wet, I'm going to tear it. So I'm trying to keep, instead of a pointy, I'm trying to keep a flat pressure and still keeping pressure out. But I'm going to try and smooth this down to the board and then work it into the corner as I close it. And then I'm going to close it. All right, I'm going to gently open this. I'm just going to open it enough to get the bone folder in. And without poking into the shoulder, I'm going to smooth down up to the shoulder. And then we're going to press the heck out of this. So if you use your backing irons without, not backing irons, brass edges, I flip it around so they're not hitting the wood. And then I'm going to use, this is called a standing press. So I don't know if the camera's going to follow over well enough. Okay. So we're going to let that sit in there and set up. And it's going to have a little bit of ripple where the shoulder is, but there's not a whole lot we can do about that one. All right. So I'm going to send you some stuff over the next week or two via email. Don't feel obliged to respond. I'm just going to say, hey, here's your supplier list and here's this list and whatever. Again, if you want to send me a little email and critique how we can make this better, any type of ideas. I love the material. I love the teaching. Just getting all this stuff underway is, I just want to make it better. I want to make the best thing we can do. If you want to let me know what type of books you want to make in the future. So if I know what people are interested in, I know what kind of classes to set up. I have some ones planned that we could do in March. Let me grab a couple things for you real quick. So I had some ideas for one-day classes. And so I've got these cute little buggers. They're just very simple Coptic bindings. The beautiful thing about this is they lay perfectly flat. You can open them up and they, they're just fun little notebooks, but they're cute. It's an exposed spine binding, and it's for the most part non-adhesive, other than putting down the material. This is hemp onto the board. The rest of it, there's the spine and everything. There's no glue or anything. It's all learning how to sew that particular stitch. And you guys are halfway there because it's a link stitch. It's a kettle stitch. It's just a continuous one without tape. So that's something that we're going to be offering. There's another one, different color. There's Japanese stab bindings. And I don't know if you can see the corner on that. But there's 3 different styles of sewing that we do with the Japanese stab bindings. And they're flexible. They don't necessarily lay flat. But there's some interesting characteristics about these in Eastern culture that we kind of teach along with binding that particular style. This is what's known as a drum leaf binding. And this is also a drum leaf binding. So, but what this does is for artists, you can have full page spreads, but it lays flat.
So you don't lose half your image in the center.
Yeah. And so this is a lot like a child's board book. The pages are fairly stiff, but it's really good for artists. That's my daughter, by the way. I painted her when she was 3. It features a breakaway spine. So you got that kind of, well, this one's squished. And you can see the image that I put in the spine. It kind of goes into it. The ones that we make in the class, I like exaggerating a little bit. So I make this kid's book that, you definitely can see the breakaway there. And then we fill it with all kinds of animal images. The artist in me, I was working some color theory. So I was doing concept art for a painting series that I want to do in no real detail, but I was just working out the colors. And so this is a drum leaf binding I didn't put a case or anything on it. So that's what it looks like before you put the paper cover and everything on. And then this drum leaf binding, like I said, they lay flat, and it's an adult coloring book. So usually in the class, we make both of these. Other stuff that we do, that's going to be in the fall. But essentially, this is the kind of stuff that I can do, let's say in March. The rest of the stuff, I haven't developed the coursework. I haven't figured out the material. It's going to be in the fall. But if there's something that you want to see, give me a yell, shoot me an email. And we're pretty much right where I said. If it went beyond 2 or 3, I'd be very surprised. And so for the most part, we're done. If you want to stay online, if you want to chat, if you have questions, thoughts, feel free. But I really don't have much else to offer you today. Again, I'm going to do a shameless plug, patreon.com/bookforge. Go sign up. Content will be added on a regular basis. Questions, comments?
Just thank you so much for all the effort you have put into the class and the course. You are an excellent teacher. I've learned a lot, and I'm excited to keep going and keep trying and seeing.
Sweet.
Results. So
thank you. This is just me. And I've never been afraid of speaking in front of people. Basically, if you were a mouse in the corner in a bindery, this is like me normally. I'm always asking about why the hell did you do that? But thank you. I appreciate it. Very cool. Any questions?
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but yeah, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun.
All right. It's been a pleasure having you, Hank. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want all 3 classes.
Okay. Yes, check the website regularly. Sometime in February, I'll be putting up what I can do in March, maybe April, and then there'll be a summer break. Then some really cool stuff coming up in the fall.
So do you ever offer these classes if you're not able to make the ones that you offer? That, like the ones in the fall, I'd really love to be able to come to, but I'm not sure that I'll be able to swing it with my work schedule.
Right.
Do you ever offer one-on-ones?
We could work something out. Yep. One-on-ones would be a little bit more expensive, simply because the time-to-person ratio is not there. But I'm also going to offer a lot of what I'm doing as I get video built up. I'm building programs on the website where you can go in, sign up for a class, and you can take it asymmetrically. If you have an hour that day, you just work through an hour. But I'm going to have it where when you take the class, it's going to be broken up into modules. The modules are going to have a written part, and with pictures, so people who like pictures and words to go along with their video. And then, of course, I'll have the video with the demonstration with multiple camera angles. And I'll be able to delve a lot more into the history of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, the hows and whys. Because as I'm talking, I sometimes forget to say things. Or it's easier once I write out the history, boom, it's there. And so I'm going to have it so you could take individual, let's say you wanted to take pamphlet making. There's a rich history to pamphlets, and people don't realize. And you'll have the video, it'll show you how to make the pamphlet. It'll have, like I said, the pictures, the words, and all kinds of stuff. And so you could take a single course like that, and they're going to be cheaper. Like the pamphlet one, I think the pamphlet one I'm going to put up for free because I want people to see what I'm doing and how it functions. But like if I put this one up there, it would probably be a $20 or $30 class. And, you'd have to go get your own materials and all that other stuff. And there would be a materials list, and it would tell you where to go get it and, all that other good stuff. But again, you'd be able to work at your own pace. And it's, you sign up for it. It's yours for life. You can go back 6 months later and log in and go, oh, okay, that's what I forgot. Or you can sign up for a program, and for a monthly subscription, you can take like Bookbinding 101, and there'll probably be 20 or 30 courses in there. Like all of this stuff would, be in there, and you'd be able to go through one at a time. And it's one of those where if you were able to go through them all in a month, hey, more power to you. You got all that information for a month's fee. If it takes you 6 months, well, that's better for me because I get 6 months worth of fees, and you still get the information. So again, it's a work at your own pace. So we have that kind of stuff lined up, and it should start rolling out around the fall. The first couple, like I said, I'm going to release for free. That way people can go in, they see what I'm doing, they see how it works. They go, yeah, I really enjoyed this. I'm going to take the next one. And that's where it'll come into play. Feel free to shoot me emails or a message if you have a question. Generally, email questions, I'll get back within 24 hours, 48 maybe if I'm not paying attention. And that kind of stuff, I'll answer it the best I can, or I'll point you in the direction. It's like, hey, I don't want to type all this out, but if you go check out Sharif Afifi's video on the what's that stitch, that the knot we did, the weaver's knot. He has a really good video and picture pamphlet that's how I learned it from him, because I watched other, like that video we showed the other day. I didn't get it from that either, but I should have put Sharif's up, and I didn't think of that one. But yeah, if I don't have an answer or I don't have time to write out a full explanation, I will definitely point you to where that information is and the best person who does it. Because a lot of the bookbinders out there, they have their specialties, and I'll shoot you the right spot. All right. Any more questions, comments? All right. You guys have been fabulous. And honestly, all of your books are successful. I'm glad you're learning. And I look forward to teaching you guys again. Tell all your friends. All right. So we're just going to dink around here for a bit. If you want to stay on, I'm going to be showing him the Gutenberg project I'm working on. It's not really part of the class, but if you're interested in that kind of thing, we'll be talking about that and the hardware and a couple other things we talked about at lunch.
Can we?
If
can
you're
we
done,
trim up my.
you can try.
Yeah.
I wish you would have said you want to do that 15 minutes ago.
Oh well, I was. You were doing.
No, and I didn't mean it to sound mean. It's the longer you wait,
Yeah.
the harder it's going to be.
Okay.
So we're going to trim up her. You're going to see if I screw this up. This is going to be fun. All right.
All right.
I'm going to switch cameras for this if you're going to watch. Where's, take this one.
I want to see from this side.
Yeah.
It'll be easier.
Okay. And we should have a camera back any second now. There we are. All right, we'll do the zoomy thing. All right, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a steel ruler, and where her end paper is sticking out beyond the text block, I'm going to put the ruler even with the text block. I may end up shaving some of that paper off
Okay.
because it's sticking out further too.
That's fine.
But we're going to get it an average of where the text block is. So I'm going to lift this out of the way so it's not there. You're going to want a longer blade. So you push that out. It should be sharp enough. And the key here, what is really going to make this a successful cut or not, is how much pressure I can push down with this hand. Because if there's not enough pressure, the paper is going to ripple and it's going to give a really bad effect to what is left on the book. I'm not so much worried about what I'm cutting off, and I don't want to use the point. I actually want to cut. So I'm going to bring my blade more flat. And I'm not going to use a lot of pressure. I want to use enough pressure that I know I'm cutting the paper and that I may or may not be cutting into the fabric, but I don't want to cut through the fabric. And that's one of those things where you're just going to have to do it a few times and screw them up or not to get a feel for it. All right, here we go. Okay, now theoretically, I should be able to put my blade under the edge of that paper.
Look at that.
Woohoo! Very nice.
And now, there's still a little bit there, but it's nowhere near as noticeable as it was. We took off a solid 16th. Do we want to take that off?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to do it again.
What's the fee for this?
For this,
Yeah.
$1 million.
Oh shit.
And you didn't see the finger at the edge of the mouth. Sorry, guys. All right, again, line it up with the edge of the text block. Hold down as much pressure as possible. It's already started peeling up. Let's come here. All right, so it didn't cut all the way through because I was trying not to put too much pressure, but I never once relieved pressure on here. So everything is still in the same spot. Had I released pressure here while pulling on that, something would have moved. And now when I go to make this second cut, I would have ended up, I guarantee you, with a little jaggy there. But okay. It kind of did it. Huh. That glue must have dried there pretty good.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, there we go. We got it.
Yay!
Oh, that's much better.
Yeah, that came out much. There we go. I don't know if you can see that. It's almost gone now. Okay.
Thank you. That would have driven me nuts.
There you go. All right, so I'm gonna switch back over. If you want to hang out for the Gutenberg, feel free. If not, class dismissed.
Yeah, I'm gonna get going. Thank you again.
All right, Hank.
See you
Good
all
having you.
later.
Thank you.
Where did I leave my phone?
I'm heading out too. Thank you.
All right, good having you. You take it easy, Heather.
Bye.
I'm going to have to go as well, but
Okay.
I would have loved to have seen it, but you take care and thank you so much.
All right, we'll catch you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.